The crimson gas clouds of the nebula twisted and turned like rivers of blood in the void of space. Inside these clouds, something moved with purpose. Commander Zexthar watched the swirling red mist from the bridge of his hunter craft. His eyes, sharp as broken glass, could see through the electromagnetic storms that would blind most species. This was his domain. This was where he hunted. Zexthar stood 8 feet tall, his body covered in dark fur, marked with glowing blue stripes that pulsed with each breath. His people, the Vorathians, had ruled the hunting grounds of the galaxy for thousands of years. They came from a world where gravity crushed the weak, and only the strong survived. Every Vorathian was born with claws that could tear through metal, and senses that could track prey across light years. He had hunted 47 different species. Some had weapons that could destroy planets. Others had technology that bent space itself. All of them had fallen to him eventually. Their fear always tasted the same in the end. Today's contract was almost insulting. Humans, a new species that had barely left their home system. The galactic records called them soft-worlders, from a planet with comfortable temperatures and gentle gravity. They had no natural weapons, no enhanced senses, nothing that made them dangerous. But someone wanted them scared, wanted them to know that space was not safe for the weak. Zexthar accepted the contract not for the challenge but for the principle. Every species needed to learn their place in the natural order. Predators hunted, prey ran. That was how the universe worked. His ship's sensors picked up the target. A small cargo vessel called the Meridian Runner, moving slowly through the nebula. The ship was old, its hull patched in several places. The kind of vessel that crews used when they could not afford anything better. Perfect prey. He began his approach, moving through the nebula's electromagnetic fields like a fish through water. His ship's stealth systems made him invisible to their basic sensors. The humans would never see him coming. Inside the Meridian Runner, Captain Daniel Price studied the navigation charts with tired eyes. He had been flying cargo runs for 12 years, and this route through the Crimson Nebula would save them 2 days. 2 days meant lower fuel costs and a bigger profit margin. In the cargo business, every credit mattered. His pilot, Amy Richardson, sat at the controls with her feet propped up on the console. She was young, maybe 25, with short black hair and quick reflexes. She could fly through an asteroid field blindfolded if needed. Right now, she looked bored. In the engine room, Greg Santos wiped grease from his hands. He was the kind of engineer who talked to machines like they were people. The Meridian Runner was held together more by his skill than by its actual parts. He knew every sound the ship made, every vibration that meant something was wrong. Nicole Harper checked the cargo manifest for the 3rd time. The medical supplies they carried were worth more than the ship itself. She was responsible for making sure every container arrived intact. She took her job seriously, maybe too seriously. But that was why Daniel hired her. They were ordinary people doing ordinary work. None of them had military training. None of them expected to be heroes. They just wanted to deliver their cargo and get paid. Amy noticed something on her sensors. A flicker, like static. She frowned and tapped the screen. The nebula caused interference sometimes, made the sensors see things that were not there. Then the ship shook. Not hard, but enough to make coffee cups slide across tables. Daniel grabbed his console to steady himself. "What was that?" he called out. "I don't know," Amy said, her fingers flying across the controls. "Sensors are going crazy." Another impact, harder this time. The lights flickered. Somewhere in the ship, an alarm began to wail. Greg's voice came over the intercom. "Captain, we just lost main power to the engines. Something hit us, something precise. This was not an accident." Daniel's stomach went cold. Pirates. It had to be pirates. They operated in nebulas like this, hiding in the electromagnetic storms where sensors could not find them. "Amy, get us moving on backup power," he ordered. "Nicole, secure the cargo." "Greg, I need those engines back." "Already trying," Greg replied. "But whoever hit us knew exactly where to aim. They disabled us without destroying the ship. That takes skill. Through the window, Daniel saw movement in the red clouds. Something big was coming toward them. A ship, sleek and dark, emerged from the nebula like a shark rising from deep water. Its design was alien, all curves and sharp edges, built for speed and stealth. The alien ship stopped 50 meters away. Close enough to be threatening, far enough to be safe. Daniel had heard stories about species that hunted for sport, that boarded ships and killed crews just to prove they could. He had always thought they were just stories. "We have no weapons," Nicole said quietly, standing beside him now. "Nothing that could hurt a ship like that." "I know," Daniel replied. The ship sat there, waiting. Inside his hunter craft, Zexthar smiled. He had disabled their engines perfectly. Now they were trapped, helpless, waiting for him to board. This was the moment when prey usually panicked, when they sent desperate distress calls or tried to bargain, or simply broke down in fear. His sensors monitored the human ship's systems. He expected to detect racing heartbeats, stress hormones flooding their blood, the biological signs of terror. Instead, he found something different. Their heart rates were elevated, yes, but they were not spiraling into panic. They were staying controlled, organized, interesting. Most prey species collapsed into chaos at this point. But control would not save them. Nothing could save them. Zexthar activated his boarding equipment. Sharp metal claws extended from his ship's hull, grabbing onto the human vessel. His cutting torch began to slice through their airlock. The sound of tearing metal echoed through both ships. Inside the Meridian Runner, the crew heard the sound and knew what it meant. Something was coming inside. "Ideas?" Daniel asked, looking at his crew. "We fight," Amy said. "We are cargo haulers," Nicole replied. "What do we fight with?" "Whatever we can find," Greg said, appearing in the doorway with a plasma cutter in his hands. "I am not dying without trying." Daniel looked at each of them. 3 faces looking back at him. Scared, but determined. Not soldiers, just people who did not want to give up. He felt something shift inside him. Fear was still there, but something else too. Something stubborn. "All right," he said. "Let us make this difficult for whoever is out there." The cutting torch finished its work. The airlock door fell inward with a heavy clang. Red emergency lights bathed everything in blood-colored shadows. For a moment, nothing happened. Then a shape filled the doorway. Tall, powerful, covered in striped fur that glowed in the darkness. Zexthar stepped aboard the human ship and breathed deeply. He expected to smell fear. Instead, he smelled recycled air, machine oil, and something else. Something that smelled like determination. The hunt had begun, but it would not go the way he expected. Zexthar moved through the human ship with practiced silence. His claws retracted to avoid making noise against the metal floors. His glowing stripes dimmed to barely visible lines. Every sense was alert, tracking the movements of his prey through the vibrations in the walls and the subtle changes in air pressure. The corridors were empty. That was normal. Prey usually hid when the predator came. They gathered in groups, thinking numbers would protect them, or they scattered to the furthest corners of their vessel, hoping to be overlooked. Either way, they made themselves easy to find, but something felt wrong. The ship's layout was simple. Just a few corridors connecting the main sections. He should have found them by now. His hearing picked up movement in multiple locations: the engine room, the cargo bay, the bridge. They were spread throughout the ship, not clustered together. Strange. When prey scattered, they moved randomly, driven by panic. These humans were positioned deliberately. He could hear them moving with purpose, not running in fear. Zexthar stopped at an intersection, his head tilted as he listened. To his left, someone was working with tools in the engine room. To his right, footsteps moved across the cargo bay. Ahead, 2 people spoke in low voices near the bridge. They were coordinating somehow. For a moment, something like doubt touched his mind. then he dismissed it. Prey always tried to resist. It never mattered. He was stronger, faster, better equipped. Whatever the humans planned would fail. He chose to go right, toward the cargo bay. Might as well start with the easiest target. In the bridge, Daniel pressed his hand against a panel that looked like a normal wall section. It slid open, revealing old-fashioned wiring and communication lines. The kind that could not be hacked or intercepted because they did not use wireless signals. "Greg, you ready?" He spoke into a handheld receiver. "As ready as I will ever be." Greg's voice crackled back through the hardwired system. "I have rerouted power to create dead zones throughout the ship. Should mess with advanced sensory equipment. At least, that is what the ship's database says about hunting species. Nicole, I have gathered everything I could use as a weapon. It is not much. Fire suppression foam, magnetic tools, some chemical containers. We are improvising here, Captain. Amy, I have been running calculations. If we can restart even one engine, I can get us moving. Not fast, but enough to make it harder for him to control the situation." Daniel closed his eyes for a moment. His crew had spent the last 15 minutes preparing, while the alien cut through their airlock. They pulled up everything the ship's database had on Vorithians. Not much information, but enough to learn the basics. Enhanced senses. Ambush predators. Used bioelectric fields to track prey. They were outmatched physically. No question. But maybe they could make this harder than the alien expected. "Remember," Daniel said, "do not engage directly. Slow him down. Learn his patterns. Stay alive." In the cargo bay, Nicole stood between tall stacks of medical supply containers. Her heart was pounding so hard she could hear it in her ears. She held a canister of fire suppression foam in one hand and a magnetic pulse tool in the other. Neither was designed as a weapon. She had no idea if they would even work. She heard the cargo bay door open. Heavy footsteps entered. She pressed herself against a container, trying to control her breathing. Zexthar scanned the cargo bay with eyes that could see in almost total darkness. Boxes and containers were stacked in neat rows. Lots of hiding places. He smiled, showing teeth designed to tear through bone. "I know you are here," he said in perfect galactic common. His voice was deep, almost a growl. "I can hear your heartbeat. I can smell your fear. Come out. Make this easy." Nicole did not move. Her hands were shaking. She was terrified. But she was also thinking. The alien said he could hear her heartbeat. That meant he was tracking her through sound or vibration. If she could disrupt that, even for a moment, she might have a chance to move. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a small device Greg had given her. A magnetic field generator, normally used to secure cargo. She set it to maximum and activated it. The effect was immediate. Zexthar's head jerked to the side as the magnetic field interfered with the bioelectric senses Vorathians used to track prey. It was like static filling his ears, making it impossible to pinpoint the human's location. He snarled in frustration and moved forward, relying on his eyes alone. He saw movement between the containers and lunged toward it. Nicole was already gone, sprinting for the other side of the cargo bay. Behind her, she heard the alien crash into the container where she had been hiding. She did not look back. Above her, hidden in the shadows of the ceiling supports, Greg waited. Zexthar recovered quickly. The magnetic interference faded as he moved away from the device. He turned and saw the human female running for the exit. Too easy. He bounded after her, closing the distance with frightening speed. Greg dropped from above, landing on the alien's back. He triggered the fire suppression foam, spraying it directly into the Vorithian's eyes. The thick white foam covered Zexthar's face, temporarily blinding him. Zexthar roared, a sound that made the whole cargo bay vibrate. He reached back and grabbed Greg, throwing him off like a toy. Greg hit the floor hard and rolled, pain shooting through his shoulder. Nicole was already through the door, triggering it to close behind her. Greg scrambled to his feet and dove through just as the door slammed shut. They ran down the corridor together, not stopping until they reached the engine room where Daniel and Amy were waiting. "Did it work?" Daniel asked. "We made him angry," Greg said, breathing hard and holding his shoulder. That counts as something, right? Inside the cargo bay, Zexthar wiped the foam from his eyes. His vision cleared slowly, revealing the empty room. The humans had escaped. Both of them. Working together. This had never happened before. Prey did not coordinate ambushes. Prey did not use the environment as a weapon. Prey certainly did not attack a Vorathian and live to run away. He examined the magnetic device they had left behind. Simple technology, nothing advanced. But they had used it perfectly, knowing exactly how it would affect his senses. That meant they had studied his species. They had prepared. Zexthar felt something unfamiliar stirring in his chest. Not fear. A Vorathian feared nothing. But something close to it. Uncertainty. He left the cargo bay and continued his hunt. The humans could not hide forever. The ship was small, their options limited. Eventually, they would run out of tricks. But as he stalked through the corridors, setting off traps that dumped lubricant on the floor to make him slip, or encountering doors that locked remotely just as he reached them, he began to realize something disturbing. The humans were not trying to kill him. They were studying him. Every encounter taught them more about how he moved, how he hunted, how he thought. They were learning faster than any prey species he had ever encountered. In the engine room, the crew was regrouping. Greg's shoulder was bruised but not broken. Nicole was shaking from adrenaline but unharmed. Amy had managed to restore partial power to one engine. He is stronger than anything we can imagine, Nicole said. When Greg landed on him, it was like hitting a wall. And he moved so fast. But he is predictable, Daniel replied, studying the ship's layout on a screen. He hunts the same way every time. Stalks his prey, corners them, uses his physical advantage to overwhelm them. He expects us to act like frightened animals. We are frightened, Amy pointed out. Yes, but we are also thinking. That is the difference. He thinks we are prey. We need to make him understand we are not. Greg winced as he moved his shoulder. How do we do that? Daniel looked at his crew. 3 scared people who had somehow survived their first encounter with an apex predator from a species that had dominated the galaxy for millennia. 3 ordinary humans who refused to give up. We keep doing what we are doing. We stay one step ahead. We use our brains because we cannot use our strength. And we make him work for every meter of this ship. Somewhere in the darkness of the Meridian Runner, Zexthar moved through the corridors with growing frustration. His pride was wounded. His confidence was shaken, and for the first time in his long career as a hunter, he began to wonder if he had chosen the wrong prey. The ship's emergency lights cast long shadows as Zexthar made his way toward the bridge. He had been hunting these humans for over an hour now. An hour. His longest hunt usually lasted 10 minutes. This was becoming embarrassing. He needed to end this. He needed to prove that the natural order still held. Predator over prey. Strength over weakness. The bridge door was partially open. Through the gap, he could see Captain Daniel Price standing at the main console. Alone. Finally, one of them isolated. Vulnerable. Zexthar pushed through the door, his massive frame filling the entrance. Daniel turned to face him, and the Vorathian expected to see terror in those soft human eyes. Instead, he saw calculation. You are the captain, Zexthar said. It was not a question. I am. Then you will be first. Daniel's hand moved to the console, fingers dancing across controls. You know, I looked up your species while you were busy in the cargo bay. Vorathians. Apex predators. Very impressive records. Zexthar moved forward slowly, claws extending from his fingers. Knowledge will not save you. Probably not, Daniel agreed. He pulled a plasma cutter from his belt. The tool was designed for cutting through metal, not fighting, but his grip was steady. But I am not going down without trying. The Vorathian paused. Prey did not arm themselves. Prey did not stand their ground. This human should be running, begging, or frozen in fear. Instead, he was preparing to fight. Daniel attacked first. He lunged forward with the plasma cutter, aiming for the alien's arm. Zexthar dodged easily, his reflexes far superior. But the move forced him to step back. The human had actually attacked, had actually made the predator retreat, even for a second. They circled each other in the small bridge space. Daniel kept the plasma cutter between them, moving with surprising skill. Not military training, Zexthar judged, but someone who had been in fights before, someone who understood how to use reach and positioning. Zexthar struck, one clawed hand sweeping toward the human's chest. Daniel rolled under the blow and came up swinging the plasma cutter. The edge caught the Vorathian's arm, cutting through fur and drawing blue blood. The wound was superficial, nothing serious. But it was a wound. This prey had marked him. Rage flooded through Zexthar. He grabbed Daniel with both hands, lifting him off the ground. The plasma cutter fell from the human's grip. Now he would break this soft creature's neck and end this insult. Daniel's hand slammed down on a button on his belt. An emergency bulkhead dropped from the ceiling, slamming down between them. Zexthar had to throw the human aside and leap back to avoid being crushed. The bulkhead sealed with a heavy clang. Separating them, through the thick metal, Zexthar heard the human coughing, recovering. Then, impossibly, he heard laughter. Not hysterical laughter. Not the laugh of someone who had lost their mind. Just a brief chuckle, as if Daniel had found something amusing. The Vorathian stared at the bulkhead. He had been wounded. He had been tricked. And the prey was laughing. Something was wrong. Something was fundamentally wrong with these humans. He accessed his ship's computer remotely through his neural link. Computer, display all biological data on human species. Focus on evolutionary history. Data flowed into his mind. He read through it quickly, and with each line, his certainty crumbled a little more. Humans came from Earth, a planet that galactic classification listed as a death world. High gravity compared to most species. Extreme temperature variations. Megafauna that hunted in packs. Apex predators in every ecosystem. Humans were not the strongest species on their planet. They were not the fastest. They did not have natural weapons. But they had survived by being smart. By working together. By using tools. By never giving up. The report included a note from a xenobiologist. Humans are unusual in that they evolved as both predator and prey. They were hunted by larger carnivores for millions of years. Yet they also hunted those same carnivores to extinction. This dual evolutionary pressure created a species with prey animal awareness and predator animal aggression. Approach with caution. Zexthar closed the data feed. For the first time in his life, he questioned the hunt. These were not prey. They never had been. They were something else. Something that did not fit into the natural order he understood. But his pride would not let him stop. He was a Vorathian. He did not flee from soft-worlders, no matter what their history claimed. He found the crew in the engineering section, all 4 of them, working together around the reactor core. This was his chance, all of them in one place. Nowhere left to run, he said, entering the room. Daniel turned to face him. We were not running. We were preparing. Preparing for what? For this. Amy triggered the controls. The reactor core emitted a controlled electromagnetic pulse. Zexthar's entire nervous system exploded with pain as the pulse overloaded every bioelectric sensor in his body. His glowing stripes flickered wildly. His vision filled with white light. The world became noise and agony. He fell to his knees, claws scraping against the metal floor. Every instinct screamed at him to run, to escape the pain. But he could not move. Could not think clearly. The humans ran past him. He felt their footsteps vibrating through the floor but could not track them. His senses were overloaded. Useless. It took minutes for his nervous system to recover. When his vision cleared, he was alone. The engineering section was empty. They had hurt him. Actually hurt him. Enough, he growled. His voice echoed in the empty room. If they wanted to fight like predators, he would show them what a real predator could do. No more ceremonial hunting. No more testing them. He would tear this ship apart until he found them, and then he would make them understand what it meant to challenge a Vorathian. Daniel's voice came through the ship's intercom. "You need to leave. We sent a distress signal before you boarded. Help is coming. You can go now, or you can stay and explain to the authorities why you attacked an unarmed cargo ship." "I do not flee from prey," Zexthar replied. "We are not prey. That is what you have not understood. Our ancestors were hunted by creatures that made you look small. Predators with teeth as long as your claws. But we are still here, and they are not. You know why? Because we learned to hunt them back. We learned that being prey is a choice." "Although, empty words," Zexthar said. But his voice lacked conviction. He began systematically destroying ship systems, life support in the forward sections, secondary power generators, water recycling. If he could not have them as prey, he would make them choose between him and dying in space. The crew retreated to the medical bay. Greg was hurt worse now. His breathing labored. The fight with the Vorathian had aggravated his earlier injuries. Nicole worked on him with shaking hands, using supplies from the medical cargo they were transporting. "Help is not coming fast enough," Amy said, checking sensors. "Life support will fail in 20 minutes. We need to evacuate." "Into the nebula?" Nicole shook her head. "The emergency pods are not rated for this kind of electromagnetic interference. We would drift for days before anyone found us." "If they found us?" Daniel stared at the wall, thinking. They had fought well. They had survived longer than the alien expected. But survival was not victory. They were still going to die if something did not change. "There has to be a way," he said quietly. Greg coughed, wincing with pain. "Captain, even if we had a way, I cannot fight anymore. I am slowing you down. No one is getting left behind." Outside the medical bay, Zexthar stalked the corridors. His pride was in ruins. His reputation would never recover from this. A legendary hunter, bested by cargo haulers, the shame would follow him forever. Unless he won. Unless he killed them all and left no witnesses. Then he could return home and say the hunt went as expected. He found a maintenance tunnel that led toward the medical bay. Tight space, but he could fit. The humans would be trapped in there, wounded and exhausted. This would end now. Inside the medical bay, an alarm sounded. Someone had entered the maintenance system near their position. "He is coming," Amy said. Daniel picked up the plasma cutter. Nicole grabbed a medical kit, ready to use as a weapon if needed. They formed a circle around Greg, protecting their injured friend. The maintenance hatch began to open. Through the narrow opening, they could see glowing blue stripes in the darkness. This was it. The final confrontation. No more tricks. No more traps. Just humans against a predator that had hunted across the galaxy. The hatch opened fully. Zexthar emerged, covered in scratches and burns from their traps. His fur matted with his own blood. But still strong. Still deadly. "No more running," he said. "We were never running," Daniel replied. "We were learning." The Vorathian lunged. Zexthar's claws caught Greg across the chest, tearing through his shirt and drawing blood. Nicole screamed and threw the medical kit at the Vorathian's head. It bounced off harmlessly. Daniel swung the plasma cutter, forcing the alien to step back. Amy grabbed Greg under the arms and dragged him toward the door. "Go, go, go." They stumbled into the corridor, Daniel backing out last, keeping the plasma cutter between them and the predator. Zexthar could have pressed the attack. Could have finished them right there, but something made him pause. The humans were protecting their wounded. They could have left the injured one behind and had a better chance to escape. But they did not. They chose to slow themselves down, rather than abandon their crew member. It was illogical. It was inefficient. It was exactly what prey should not do. The medical bay door slammed shut. Daniel hit the emergency lock, sealing it. That would buy them maybe 2 minutes. They ran to the main cargo hold, the only space large enough to set up a defensive position. Nicole worked frantically on Greg's wounds while Amy checked her datapad. "Life support has 8 minutes left in this section," Amy said. We are running out of time and options. Greg coughed, blood on his lips. Leave me. Take the pods and go. Not happening, Daniel said firmly. Captain, I am dead weight right now. You know it. I know it. If you stay, we all die. If you go, at least some of us survive. Nicole tied off a bandage, her hands steady despite the tears on her face. Greg, shut up. We are not leaving you. Greg looked at his crew. These people he had worked with for years. Good people. People who deserved better than dying in a cargo hold, being hunted by an alien monster. He tried to think of something meaningful to say, something profound. Instead, he laughed. Just a short, bitter laugh. You know what? If we do survive this, we are going to have one hell of a story to tell at bars. That time an alien apex predator boarded our ship and we fought him with fire extinguishers and magnetic tools. Despite everything, despite the fear and pain and approaching death, Nicole laughed too. Yeah. That will sound great until everyone calls us liars. I will back you up, Amy said, a small smile on her face. I will swear it is true. Daniel looked at his crew, bleeding, exhausted, terrified, but still capable of humor, still human. We are not dead yet, he said. Amy, you said you restored partial power to the communications array. Yeah, but it is in the forward section. Life support already failed there. How long would it take to send a distress signal? If I could get there? Maybe 3 minutes to patch into the system and boost the signal strong enough to reach past the nebula interference. 9. Then that is what you do. Get us help. Amy shook her head. Captain, I cannot get there and back before life support fails. It is a one-way trip. Not if I buy you time. Daniel stood up, checking the charge on his plasma cutter. I will draw the alien away from you. Lead him on a chase through the ship. Keep him busy while you work. That is suicide, Nicole said. Maybe. But it is a chance. Right now, we have no chance at all. Greg grabbed Daniel's arm with bloody fingers. Captain, take care of them, Greg. That is an order. Before anyone could argue further, Daniel opened the cargo hold door and sprinted into the corridor. He made as much noise as possible, banging on walls, shouting, drawing attention to himself. In the sealed medical bay, Zexthar was cutting through the door when he heard the human captain yelling. The prey was running again, making itself known, either incredibly stupid or planning something. He abandoned the door and followed the sound. Time to end this hunt permanently. Amy waited until she heard the Vorathians' heavy footsteps pass by their position, heading after Daniel. Then she grabbed her toolkit and ran in the opposite direction, toward the forward section and the communications array. Daniel ran through the ship, his breath coming in gasps. He was not as young as he used to be, and the adrenaline that had kept him going was starting to fade. His legs felt heavy, but he kept moving, kept making noise, kept leading the predator away from Amy. He could hear Zexthar behind him. Close. Getting closer. Daniel ducked into a side corridor, then another, navigating through the familiar ship on instinct. He was buying time. That was all that mattered. Behind him, Zexthar was done playing games. He put on a burst of speed, his powerful legs eating up the distance. The human was tiring. Soon, this would be over. Daniel burst through a door into the observation deck. The room had a large window overlooking the crimson nebula outside. Beautiful and deadly, like so much of space. This was the end of the line. No more rooms beyond this. No more corridor to run down. He turned to face the door. Plasma cutter raised. His hands were steady, even though his heart was racing. If this was the end, he would meet it on his feet. Zexthar entered slowly, savoring the moment. The human captain was cornered. No crew to save him this time. No tricks left. Just prey and predator. The way it was always meant to be. It is over, the Vorathian said. Maybe. They stood there, facing each other. The red light from the nebula filled the room, making everything look like it was soaked in blood. Neither moved. This moment hung between them, heavy with finality. "Why do you resist?" Zexthar asked. He was genuinely curious now. "You cannot win. You must know that. Your ship is failing. Your crew is wounded. I have hunted species far more powerful than yours. Why not accept the inevitable?" Daniel lowered the plasma cutter slightly. "You want to know why? Because that is not what humans do. We do not accept the inevitable. We spit in its face and look for another way. There is no other way. There is always another way. We just have not found it yet. Philosophy will not save you." "No," Daniel agreed. "But it makes me feel better about my chances." In the forward section, Amy reached the communications array. The cold was already seeping in. Life support had failed here 10 minutes ago. Her breath came out in white clouds. Her fingers were already getting numb. She worked fast, pulling panels and rewiring connections. The ship's communication system was old. Required manual input. She had to boost the power, adjust the frequency to punch through the nebula interference, and pray someone was close enough to hear. 3 minutes, Daniel said to give him 3 minutes. In the observation deck, Zexthar began to move forward. Slowly. There was no rush now. The hunt was over. "I have studied your kind today," he said. "You are clever, resourceful, braver than you should be. But you are still prey. Your ancestors were hunted across your world by larger predators. That fear is in your blood. You cannot escape what you are." Daniel actually smiled. "You are right. We were hunted. For millions of years, things with bigger teeth and sharper claws chased us through the darkness. Do you know what happened to those predators? They died. You said so yourself. We killed them. Every single one. We hunted them back. And the ones that were too big to fight? We avoided them until they starved. And the ones that adapted? We adapted faster. That is what you do not understand about humans. We do not fight the way you expect. We do not follow the rules of your natural order." Bold words from a man about to die. Zexthar lunged forward. Daniel tried to dodge, but his tired body was too slow. The Varathian grabbed him, claws digging into his shoulders. The plasma cutter clattered to the floor. In the communications room, Amy's fingers flew across the controls. She had the signal ready, just needed to activate it. Her hands were shaking from the cold. "Come on, come on." She pressed the final button. The communications array lit up, sending a powerful distress signal into space. Colonial patrol ships operating in the region would pick it up. Help was coming. Her communicator crackled to life. "Captain, I did it. Help is coming. Colonial patrol detected our signal. They estimate 15 minutes. 15 minutes. Daniel just needed to survive 15 more minutes." Zexthar heard the transmission too. Reinforcements were coming. If he stayed much longer, he would have to explain why he attacked an unarmed vessel. The authorities would not accept "I was hunting" as a valid excuse. He looked down at the human captain in his claws. So close to victory. He could kill this one. At least. Claim one trophy from this disaster of a hunt. Daniel looked up at him. Their faces were inches apart. The human's shoulder was bleeding where claws had pierced skin. He should have been terrified. He should have been begging. Instead, he smiled. Then he did something that broke every rule Zexthar understood about predator and prey, about hunting and survival, about the natural order of the universe. Daniel laughed. The laugh was not what Zexthar expected. It was not hysterical. It was not the broken sound of a mind that had snapped under pressure. It was genuine. Full, the kind of laugh someone makes when they hear a good joke. The Varathian froze. His claws were still in the human's shoulders, ready to tear. But that sound, that impossible sound, stopped him as surely as if he had hit a wall. Prey did not laugh when death stood over them. Prey cried. Prey begged. Prey screamed. They did not laugh like they had just heard something funny. Daniel kept laughing, even though it hurt his wounded shoulders. He could not help it. The absurdity of the situation had finally hit him. Here he was, a cargo hauler who just wanted to deliver medical supplies and get paid, being held by an 8-foot-tall alien warrior who had hunted across the galaxy, and somehow, his crew had survived this long. It was ridiculous. It was impossible. It was the most human thing in the world. What? Zexthar managed to say, his voice uncertain for the first time. What is funny? What is funny? Daniel's laughter subsided to a grin. You. Us. This whole situation. You came here thinking we were prey. Soft little creatures from an easy world. But you know what humans call our planet? Earth. We named it after dirt, the stuff we crawl around in. I do not understand. Our whole history is a joke. And we are the punchline. We climbed down from trees because we were not strong enough to stay there. We survived ice ages by being too stubborn to die. We fought predators that could tear us apart with one swipe, and we won not because we were stronger, but because we refused to quit. Zexthar loosened his grip slightly. The humans' biological readings were all wrong. There was no fear, no desperation, just mirth, genuine amusement. Daniel continued, his voice steady. You know what makes humans different? We laugh at death. Not because we are brave, because we have lived with death so long that we refuse to give it power over us. You want to know why I am laughing? Because you, a legendary hunter who has claimed 47 species, just spent hours being outsmarted by 4 cargo haulers with improvised weapons. You did not outsmart me. Then why am I still alive? Why is my crew still alive? We are not soldiers. We are not warriors. We are just people who haul cargo for a living. And we made you work for every meter of this ship. Zexthar's mind was reeling. Every instinct told him this was wrong. Prey did not speak like this. Prey did not laugh when cornered. The bioelectric readings he could sense from the human showed elevated heart rate, yes, but also something else, satisfaction, pride. Not in survival, but in the fight itself. Humans have a saying, Daniel said, if you are going through hell, keep going. We have another one. When life gives you lemons, make lemonade. We turn every bad situation into a challenge, every disaster into a story, every predator into a problem we can solve. I could still kill you. Yes. You could. But help is 15 minutes away. You heard my pilot. Colonial patrol ships are coming. You can kill me and then explain to the authorities why you attacked an unarmed cargo vessel. Or you can leave now, go back to your people, and tell them that humans are not prey. Zexthar stared at the human. This soft creature with no claws, no natural weapons, no enhanced senses. This creature that by all rights should have died within minutes of his boarding, and yet here it was, wounded and trapped, laughing at the predator that held its life in its hands. For the first time in his long hunting career, Zexthar felt fear. Not fear of physical harm. He could still win this fight, but fear of something deeper. Fear that everything he believed about the natural order was wrong. Fear that there was no natural order at all. Only species that adapted and species that did not. Fear that humans represented something his species had never encountered. A prey species that had evolved into predators. Creatures that understood being hunted because they had been hunted for millions of years, but also understood being hunters because they had hunted back. Prey that laughed at death was not prey at all. The observation deck door opened. Amy and Nicole stood there, helping Greg between them. All 3 looked exhausted, wounded, barely standing. But they were all still alive. Zexthar looked at them. 4 humans. 4 soft-worlders who should have been easy prey. They stared back at him with eyes that showed fear, yes, but also determination. The kind of look predators gave each other when deciding if a fight was worth it. His grip on Daniel released. The captain stumbled back, catching himself against the wall. This is not over, Zexthar said. But his voice lacked conviction. Yes, it is, Daniel replied. You lost the moment you thought we were prey. The Varathian backed toward the door. His bioluminescent stripes flickered in patterns that meant distress in his species. Confusion. Uncertainty. He needed to leave. Needed to process what had happened. Needed to understand how everything he knew about hunting had failed him. He moved past the three humans in the doorway. They did not attack, did not even try to stop him. They just watched him go with those steady eyes. Zexthar ran back to his ship, cutting through the corridors he had stalked through so confidently before. He reached his vessel and detached from the human ship without ceremony. His hunter craft disappeared into the red clouds of the nebula, fleeing from prey that had stopped being prey. Inside the Meridian Runner, the crew stood in silence for a moment. Then Greg started laughing. It hurt his wounds, but he could not stop. Nicole joined him, then Amy. Daniel leaned against the wall and laughed until tears ran down his face. They were alive, impossibly, ridiculously alive. The Colonial patrol ships arrived 12 minutes later. Medical teams treated Greg's injuries properly. Engineers helped repair the Meridian Runner's damaged systems. Security officers took statements, though they clearly did not believe half of what they heard. Captain Daniel Price filed his report, explaining everything that happened. How a Vorathian hunter boarded their ship. How his crew fought back with improvised weapons and tactics. How in the end, human laughter drove off a predator that had hunted across the galaxy. The security chief looked skeptical. You are saying he just left? A Vorathian warrior ran away because you laughed at him? That is exactly what I am saying. Captain, that is the most ridiculous thing I have ever heard. Daniel smiled. I know. That is what makes it true. Word of the incident spread through the galaxy faster than light travel. Traders told the story in spaceports. Merchants whispered it in galactic markets. The tale grew with each telling. As stories do, a Vorathian hunter encountered humans and fled. Not because of superior weapons. Not because of advanced technology. But because the humans laughed at death itself. Most species did not believe it. Vorathians were apex predators. They did not flee from soft-worlders. The story had to be exaggerated. A tale told to make humans seem tougher than they were, but Zexthar returned to his home world changed. He did not speak of the hunt. He did not take contracts anymore. When other Vorathians asked him about humans, he said only one thing. They are not prey. Do not hunt them. His people noticed the fear in his eyes when he said it. Fear from a hunter who had never feared anything. That, more than any story, made them wonder what these humans truly were. The Galactic Council added a note to humanity's file. Humans possess unusual psychological resilience. They respond to existential threats with humor rather than fear. This adaptation appears to break standard predator-prey dynamics. Recommend caution when engaging with this species. Xenobiologists studied the Meridian Runner incident, trying to understand what happened. Their conclusion was simple. Humans evolved gallows humor as a survival mechanism. When faced with death, they choose to laugh rather than surrender to fear. This psychological trick allows them to keep functioning when other species would collapse. To a predator species like the Vorathians, whose hunting success depends on prey behaving like prey, this is devastating. A prey that laughs is a prey that has rejected its role, and that breaks the entire system of hunting. Months later, the Meridian Runner was repaired and back in service. The crew still flew cargo runs, still took routes through nebulas to save time and fuel. They were not heroes. They did not want to be heroes. They were just people doing their jobs, but they noticed something different. When they passed other ships in space, crews would stare. When they docked at stations, people would whisper. The story of 4 cargo haulers who fought off a Vorathian hunter had spread across the galaxy. One day, as they flew through the Crimson Nebula again, their sensors detected a ship. Amy checked the readings and went pale. Captain, we have a Vorathian patrol vessel on sensors. Same region where we were attacked. Daniel stood up, tension filling his body. Then the sensors showed something unexpected. The Vorathian ship was altering course. Moving away from them. Avoiding them. The crew looked at each other in amazement. They are running from us, Nicole said quietly. Good, Greg replied, still favoring his healing wounds. Let them run. Daniel sat back down, a small smile on his face. Amy, maintain course. We have a delivery to make. The Meridian Runner continued through the nebula, its crew carrying on with their ordinary lives. They did not know they had changed how the galaxy viewed humanity. They did not know that their fight had proven something important. That fear is not inevitable. That predators can be challenged. That prey can become predators. And that sometimes, the best weapon against the darkness is not a gun or a knife or a bomb. Sometimes, the best weapon is laughter. In the observation lounge, Daniel stood alone for a moment, looking out at the red clouds swirling around them. He thought about Zexthar. Wondered where the hunter was now. If he was still afraid, he hoped the alien understood. Humans were not trying to conquer the galaxy. They were not trying to prove they were the strongest species. They just wanted to live their lives, haul their cargo, and go home at the end of the day. But if something tried to hunt them, tried to make them prey, humans would fight back. Not because they were warriors, because they were human. And humans had learned long ago that the only way to face death is to look it in the eye and refuse to blink. The intercom crackled. Captain, we are approaching the delivery point. Acknowledged. Take us in, Amy. The Meridian Runner flew on through the Crimson Nebula, just another cargo ship making its way through the galaxy. But now, hunters watched from the shadows and chose to let it pass. Because they had learned what happens when you hunt humans. They laugh.